with this bit and all of this bit just in primer. Yeah. This raw carbon fibre.
Not fitted.
This raw carbon fibre, not fitted, just the part out of Ferrari.
Oh.
What do you think?
I'd hate to guess.
Could even have sat in auto rotation to switch the engine off. The updraft would have driven the rotors and kept you there. There was no way we could land.
That's crazy.
We had to call it off.
This was not by far the cheapest car there, but there was some really, really expensive stuff there.
It was pretty much the cheapest car there.
Well, there was a fleet of Carrera GTs that turned up and a fleet of Koenigsegg's that turned up.
This is all one piece.
It's all one piece?
One piece. It comes...
So, and this is, to preface it, a Mayday call in a jumbo jet.
Yes, we...
Yes, just casually. Called for Mayday, and because also you're coming down and now you're going full throttle and up.
There would be an accelerating attitude change to do a go-around, which could easily have caused problems with an engine flaming out. But we weren't going to do a go-around. We were absolutely going to land.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Spudcast with my good buddy, Captain Duncan, who not only has he got a Ferrari F12 TDF, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on, I also met him on a Petrohead Tours, which we might bring up as well, probably. He also used to be a jumbo jet pilot, which we're going to get onto a little bit later on. But before we do that, we're going to do some quickfire questions. And before we do that, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
Right, we're going to do some quick-fire questions to get going. I'm going to say tea or coffee, but we've both got a cup of tea.
Definitely tea. Hardly ever even drink coffee these days, but yes, definitely.
And I probably know the answer to the next one as well, because they're running around somewhere. Dogs or cats?
You know,
dogs.
My two lovely dogs, PJ and Benson.
Favourite flavour crisps?
Quite like Marmite crisps.
Oh, yes, okay.
And particularly like Marmite Twiglets, and both dogs like Twiglets as well, so that's Marmite on them. So yeah, Marmite crisps.
Marmite crisps. Favourite chocolate bar? Obviously, your svelte figure, you don't like a few chocolate bars like I do, but...
I really, I have to look back really to when I used to eat chocolate a bit. I don't hardly ever have a chocolate now, but quite like a Snickers and Mars bar, that sort of thing. Snickers. When I was young, I used to have pretty much a daily Mars bar because I passed the sweet shop on the way walking to school. This is when I was sort of 7 to about 12. Every day I would stop off for a Mars bar when they were about 7 old pence each. They used to be marked price on them. No, 6D, I think they were for a lot of the time.
6D, what's that?
6D. D was the old pence before decimalisation. This is about 1967, 68.
Oh, good grief.
So... when there wasn't much inflation, so they actually marked the price on the goods.
Oh, wow. Oh, good grief.
And that was always Mars.
Because Rick the Spud and the Spudcast, the favourite way to eat potatoes?
Roasties. Good old roasties.
Good proper roasties. You have to go to my mate's pub. Shout out to Dom from the Anglesey Arms and the George. He says you've got to get down to the George to have his roasties. Amazing. Favourite veg with a roast?
Goes well with roast. I don't often have it with a roast. Cauliflower cheese. I like cauliflower cheese.
Yeah.
Does that go with a roast? It does
yeah,
really.
I mean, it's sort of vegetables drowned in melted cheese.
If the cheese doesn't overwhelm it, you're right. But I do like cauliflower cheese.
Cauliflower cheese, excellent. The healthy veg option. I like that. Favourite biscuit? We've got some biscuits on the go here.
Again, I try not to eat biscuits at all, but these, if these count, shortbreads.
But you knew I was coming, so you broke the shortbreads out.
Well, yeah, I do quite like shortbread biscuits.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Favourite thing to put on toast? Probably Marmite again.
No.
Or not so much?
Thick cut marmalade.
My dad's a thick cut marmalade man. He loves it. I'm quite happy for the fine cut marmalade, but I don't do this shredless stuff that you can look. If you can look through it, it's not marmalade. It's orange jelly. Hate it. Absolutely hate it. 3 films or a couple of films that you'd watched over and over again.
Oh, pretty. Definitely Top Gun, things like that. Mm-hmm. Top Gun, probably Back to the Future. I've always rewatched that. I like the original first one, although actually the other 2 are okay.
They're pretty good as well.
The third that was the really good one as well. But anyway,
the Western one. The second one was the future one.
So the Back to the Future series, but always the first one's a good watch. And from that era, sort of a bit earlier, Star Wars, particularly Empire Strikes Back. The third of the original.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I
trio.
haven't seen any of the later ones. I've seen the 3 original ones. I haven't seen the later ones.
I think Empire Strikes Back, in fact, was the middle, wasn't it? The middle of the first 3.
I couldn't tell you. Someone will tell us. Drop it in the comments.
Okay, I think it was. I think it was.
Favourite comedian? Do you watch comedian? Peter Kay. He's kind of hasn't done anything for ages. He came back for a little bit and then disappeared again, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
I don't know.
He's lost a lot of weight as well, and I don't know whether he had health issues, but
maybe
some of his one-man shows are really excellent.
Yeah. No, he's a good lad. What's the limit of your mechanicking ability? Oh, I'm going to caveat this by saying he was Captain Duncan was saying we were originally going to film in the garage next to his lovely TDF, but I mean the sun's out, so fantastic. But he's also parked it at a bit of a funny angle because you were going to jack it up yourself and take the wheels off to go and get some tyres done. So you're already...
Yes.
Do you do much work on this other than taking wheels off?
That's pretty much the limit on this. the other 4 cars, I do everything.
Everything?
There's nothing that... I wouldn't go as far as taking engines out.
No, same.
But anything to do with brakes...
Because what's this we've got? I forgot to mention the other one we've got behind us.
The XK's never had anything done.
And this is an XK 150?
Apart from a steering rack was replaced. I did get a local place to do that.
And what is this?
XK 150 Roadster 1958, that one.
1958.
But that really is so reliable. The BMW, the most complicated thing I've done on that, sorry you can't see behind, that's a 5 Series F11 Tourer. I've done things like the ZF gearbox oil change, which has to be done properly with the right temperature, and 6 new injectors, which all have to be coded in. So you need a little bit of stuff with the BMW.
Coded in?
Even changing a battery on BMWs, you have to code them in.
You can't just change an injector or battery.
Not with AGM batteries. So really, just generally everything in the way of spark plugs, brake discs, pads, the Z4M in one of the bubbles there. All 4 calipers were off winter before last. I did a complete refurb of those and respray and new seals and pistons. That sort of thing I can do.
So you're pretty handy then.
There's not a lot that I won't
You'll have a go.
Have a go at.
You'll have a go. You haven't done any servicing on the TDF. You'd rather not touch it probably because of the value of it.
It's essential really that it has its annual visit to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Although this coming year I opted not to have the hydraulic fluid replaced by them, which they were going to charge about 700 quid for.
Okay.
I'll do it myself.
Yep.
I've already got...
Hydraulic fluid?
Just the brake hydraulic fluid.
Oh, right.
I mean, it's done every 2 years, but they split the prices out and they were charging something like, well, the amount I saved was 1,366 quid, which was just 2 air filters.
What?
And the hydraulic fluid change.
Wow.
So, all right, if you go and buy the Ferrari air filters, they are about 280 quid for the pair.
For air filters?
For air filters, which are changed every 4 years, I think. But I've got, in all the other cars, I've got these, what do you call them? The K&N lifetime filters.
Yep.
BMC, which is an Italian brand, they make them for the F12 and the F12 TDF.
Okay.
And they were 140 quid for a pair and they'll last forever. So I'm going to put 2 new air filters in and do the hydraulics. I've got all the equipment to do a pressure hydraulic bleed process, which is the easiest way of doing it. But apart from that, I do nothing on the TDF, but everything on the other cars.
There you go. So if you've got a TDF and you need some servicing done, drop your phone number in the comments. Duncan will get back to you. Let's get on to some, I mean, we've sort of just got onto some car-related stuff. The most underrated or overrated or both car
that I've ever had,
or just anything that you think people that have raved about and you've maybe added an experience in one.
I don't tend to drive many other people's cars. Well, I've got 5 to choose from. I stick with my own. But
yeah, sure.
Whenever I've ventured in as a passenger or very occasionally driven an SUV, I don't like SUVs of any sort. Really.
No, sure.
Particularly having dogs, I like a low loading deck.
Yeah.
SUVs, mounting everything up high, it ruins their dynamics. Dogs hate getting in and out of them.
Yeah.
So, no, any SUV.
SUV. And underrated, something that you've like maybe had been for a passenger in, you thought, actually, that was much better than I thought.
No, I couldn't really come up with an example of that.
No, that's fair enough. a little kind of scenario. So one car for a year, you have to daily it. Everything's paid for, but you have to have already driven it or been in it.
On my crib sheet, you would miss the last few letters. I couldn't quite work out. I've actually had to have driven it or been in it.
Yeah, driven it or been in it.
Well, I've had enough choice of the odd nice
TDF.
Ferrari. So for someone else paying for daily driving, I've did a fair few tests of a Roma, Ferrari Roma, and a track day, all at Ferrari's expense. Never even got anywhere near to buying one, but at least I've driven it. That would be quite a good daily. Ferrari Roma, or what they would call it now. It's there's a new. Is
it still a Roma? Oh no, they've just changed it.
There's a sort of a facelift with a new name. I can't even remember what the new name is. I wouldn't mind a Pura Sangue, although it's an SUV, isn't it? It
is an SUV. After you just slagged off SUVs, but Ferrari don't do SUVs the same as everyone else does SUVs, so that's fair.
And I have sat in one.
Yeah, well, we'll take that. Which car is the biggest regret selling?
Regret selling? Probably more the time I sold it, in that I really had to clear the garage space. But for 10 years of having the XK, so from 1994 to 2004, it shared the garage with a Series 1 4.2 Roadster E-Type, 1966.
Oh, lovely.
Which was a gorgeous car. Really interesting history, that one. And I had it most of the time was up in Scotland. Then I moved down to Surrey. And I was just finding maintaining two classics quite difficult because I was working at the time, living abroad a lot. So I got rid of that in 2004. It probably covered its costs for the 10 years I'd had it. I sold it pretty much for a little bit more than I bought it for. But within a few years, E-Type, I think I sold it for about 34 grand. And it was a really nice example, unmolested. And it was a very interesting history. It came from Eagle E-Types, but it wasn't an Eagle, E-Type as such. This was in the early days. And that's a regret, in fact. If I'd just spent a little bit more, I could have got an Eagle E-Type rebuilt from the bulkhead backwards for only maybe 50 or 60 grand, when I paid 32 or 33 for mine, including having them fully retrim it inside. So if I just pushed the boat out a little bit, an Eagle E-Type these days is worth crazy money, isn't it? Because they're so desirable.
Like 7 figures, aren't they?
Could be. I don't know. So that was a regret selling, because the value of E-Types did rocket from 2004. I would think at times that had been worth nearer 100 grand, and I sold it for 33. So that's painful.
It was about that sort of time, I think, maybe a little bit later than that, 07, 08. My boss's mate, the other way around, had a Ferrari F40 that he was struggling to sell for, I think, 200 grand. Wow. No one wanted it because of the cost of maintenance of them. And now, within about a year, I think, after he sold it, it gone over $500,000, and he was obviously, every time he looked at F40 prices, he was crying. Biggest regret not buying? Is there anything you've gone to look at and you thought, I should have got that?
I was thinking about that. Around the time, the first Ferrari I bought was a Speciale.
Oh, lovely.
Although I had agreed to buy a 488 GTB from them, which was in the sort of speccing process. But I saw the Speciale untaxed, unregistered, with 50 miles on the clock in Maranello Staines at Eggham's showroom. It was Chris Evans's car. He had it just sitting there, never used it, never taxed it. And there was a matching pair, same colour, same spec, a 599 GTO and a 599 SA Aperta, which is the convertible version of the GTO. Incredibly rare. There were 80 made as opposed to 599 of the GTO. There was a pair of those. And the price for the pair this is back in about 2014, 2015, where GTO prices were, you could get a 599 GTO for about 300 grand.
No.
And it was about 650 then for the SA Aperta. It was under $1 million for the pair, matching. And there's no way I could afford anything like that. I was about to pay 350K for a Speciale, untaxed, unregistered. But what if, because GTO prices are rising quite quickly. They're probably worth 650, 700.
Is that just because they're rarity? GTO, GTB stuff's rare, isn't it?
They are relatively rare, 599 as opposed to 799 for the TDF.
Yeah.
But the SA Aperta has just gone ballistic.
Right.
Only 80 worldwide. You hardly ever see them. And they're up in the 1.5 to 2.5 million, I would think, if they ever come on the market.
Did you have a 458 then?
Had a 458 Speciale, yeah.
Amazing.
Loved it.
Because they're rocketing.
They're doing,
rocketing. They're going the wrong way.
They are going the wrong way for our Tom, who wants to buy one.
Who wants to buy a shout out to Tom from another Petrohead Tours. Also, I forgot to mention at the top of the filming, I'm wearing a Chris Mapey shirt today. I was coming to see Duncan today in the Porsche with the roof down. It's a rusty old Porsche, but I had the roof down, had some flat six noises going on. I thought I'll put the Chris Mapey shirt on from with the sunshine. I thought I was on a Petrohead Tours for a minute.
Very smart.
Biggest regret buying? Have you ever bought anything and thought that's cost me a load of money, or that was actually a bit rubbish?
The first car I ever bought brand new, in about 1999. It was a time where it was well worth importing your cars yourself from the likes of Holland or Denmark, because you saved an awful lot of tax and whatever. I ordered an Alfa Romeo 156 LS Speed, which it was a nice enough car, but the single clutch automated gearbox, as we all know, it wasn't a great technology long term.
No.
And someone went to the back of it, so I got rid of it after only about 18 months.
Yeah.
And it still depreciated a chunk, of course, which part of the problem with buying new cars, something I very, very rarely do. But that was a bit of a regret. Got rid of that.
Yeah, that's fair. Is this a single clutch? Changing subject.
No, dual clutch.
Clutch. And a minute ago, you said this was you called it a 799.
799 made. That's the production.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about the model. I thought that was some like code as well as the F12.
799 limited edition run. So the 599 GTO is that 200 units rarer.
Right. Okay.
Probably a lot to do with the single clutch. It's basically the same engine. It's still the Enzo derived, normally aspirated V12, which was developed to this, and then the 812.
Which was a 5.9?
It probably wasn't. It was exactly 6 litres, I think, in the 599 GTO.
Okay.
6.3 in this, and then it became 6.5 in the 812 Superfast.
Yeah. Man, fantastic. Fantastic. Best modification you can do on a car?
I'm not really into modding cars, apart from I do tend to stick better sounding exhausts on the M2s that I've had.
Is that an exhaust?
All 3 M2s that I've had have had upgraded, better sounding exhausts, particularly the S55 engined M2 Comp.
Let them breathe a bit.
And M2 CS, that's a dreadful sounding engine with a normal exhaust because it's so raspy.
Yes, agreed.
So yeah.
And a mod you've done to a car which ruined it?
Because I so rarely mod cars of any sort.
You've done something and then changed it. Have done something and changed it back?
Never done anything like that. No. I prefer to keep things fairly standard.
That's fair. No one's driving around in a TDF with aftermarket exhaust on it.
You can get the Novatec exhaust for the TDF.
Mate, let's
absolutely bonkers.
As you well know, SuperGav did that on his 812 MAYDAY. That thing was crazy. That was my first. Well, that was my first time meeting you on the. I mean, shout out to SuperGav if you're watching this. But yeah,
hi SuperGav.
He had a Ferrari 812, which was absolutely fantastic. We'll get this little side story here. He was driving it around, he loved it, but he did say, the exhaust sounds lovely, but I think it's above like 5,000 revs, I think, the valve's open, which makes that glorious V12 sing. He said second gear, that's like 60, 70 miles an hour. So he said the valves are just shut the whole time. So he took it into, I think, Scuderia Ferrari, I think they're in West London, like a tuning place.
Scuderia Car Parts. They're
Yes.
just round the back of Maranello Egham. So Egham.
Yeah, they've got one place there. There's another place they got in West London as well. I think
okay.
it's the same company. But yeah, he went in there and said, "Can you make my exhaust louder?" And they said, "Yeah, we can put a Novitec back box on it with a button to open the valves." And he said, "How do I make it louder than that?" And they said, "Well, we can take the resonators out." And he said, "How do I make it louder than that?" And they said, "We can take the cats out." And then he said, "Well, how do I make it louder than that?" And I think they changed the manifolds. I think they have to drop the engine on the subframe or something, change the manifolds to something off a race car. And I think it noise tested it about 126 decibels. There's a video of it on my channel, us dropping it off, talking through what we're having done, and then going and picking it up. And my days, this thing, the first tunnel we got to on Petra Tours, and he dropped about 4 gears and just booted it. Both our ears were bleeding, but in a good way. It sounded like a Formula One car.
Yep.
It just sounded absolutely phenomenal. Anyway, we've gone down the rabbit hole already. Biggest bugbear on the road?
Middle lane hoggers,
Yeah.
definitely.
Just undertake them, do you? I mean, I do.
I've been known to.
A pinch yourself moment, just in life in general, doesn't have to be car related.
I think every time I look at the blue car behind us,
The paintwork is stunning.
I still can't quite believe that.
What colour is it?
That's blue Electrico.
Blue Electrico. And do you know how many in this colour? Is this only a TDF colour?
No,
No?
no. Oh no! I first saw the colour on a LaFerrari in the service department of Maranello Egham. This is around before I'd even bought the 488. I never bought a 488 GTB. It was while I was speccing the 488. I was considering the colour. It just blew me away, the colour of seeing this LaFerrari in it. There was certainly one other in this country. I think there's probably 2 others in this country. One since is no more because it was part of that big car storage fire somewhere up north, somewhere in the Manchester area. There's definitely one in Holland. So there are a few around.
Okay.
But it's a lovely colour.
It makes absolutely fantastic colour. And how many TDFs are there?
Well, worldwide.
Yeah,
799 were made, of which about 75, 80 in this country. Usually about 10% of the worldwide total comes here.
Most embarrassing car crash / incident, which you do or don't have to answer.
Well, there are certain couple of incidents I don't particularly want to go into here. Quite embarrassingly, with the M2 CS that I had really only just bought, it went to friends at getting some PPF done. Paul and Auto Curators, that's it, Auto Curators.
Yep.
It went over there, and I took it over there. It was thick fog. It was a horrible, horrible day. And I thought, well, they're going to wash it. So I took it round the back of their unit in fog, and there was this sort of concrete pad area, which I sort of manoeuvred it onto. And I fell off the side of this thing. I literally crunched down front right.
Sat on the wishbone.
Hell of a bang.
Oh,
no, it wasn't sufficiently settled that I needed to jack it to get it off. I could sort of scrape it and get the car to climb back up the edge of this concrete. And when I had, about a week later, I looked to see if there was any damage, couldn't easily see any damage, and Paul didn't spot any damage when they were working on it. But the next week it went in to have the exhaust done in Woking, and they gave me a call and said, your lower wishbone is bent.
Oh,
so no. I bought 150 quid. And that was that sort of thing I can do. I replaced the lower wishbone and then took it to have 4-wheel tracking afterwards. So it didn't cost me a lot, but it was quite embarrassing.
That is embarrassing, yeah. Like low speed bumps. I got like I said to you in the box today, someone's like bumped into a wall or something like that. I may have nudged the wall in the potato barn with it as well. We've already talked a little bit about the TDF. I was going to get on to talking about your Ferrari. What is so this is an F12, but a TDF. What's the difference between an F12 and a TDF?
Well, the TDF is the lightened sort of track version of the GTB, the standard F12 GTB.
So that's what a standard one's called, is an F12 GTB.
GTB it is, yeah. So they saved, would you believe, in weight, they saved over 100 kilos.
Wow, okay.
Which in a car that I think it weighs 1395 or something.
In my money, that's 4 sacks of Spuds.
It's quite a lot. So they saved a lot of weight, introduced rear wheel steering,
okay,
which the F12 didn't have, but that later went on to the 812 Superfast. The engine looks slightly different. It's got these hydraulically controlled intake trumpet, variable intake trumpets, which again the 812 Superfast has. So that's
which
really
change what on with the throttle?
I don't really know what it does. It's got these two actuators that sit across the top. It's just a variable intake tract length. Must be something to do with response.
Yeah, response maybe when it's getting hotter or something.
So the engine, more power, more power, lighter.
Yeah.
It all sort of no leather anywhere generally. They're all Alcantara, and no carpets to keep the weight down. And even the under tray, the whole under tray is carbon fibre panels.
Yeah. So it's all everything that's painted, that's also carbon fibre.
This is all one piece.
It's all one piece.
One piece. It comes as raw carbon fibre here, and primed here, and then it's all sort of lacquered up. But yeah, one piece.
So is the diffuser bit separate?
That's separate.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is all one piece.
That's all the same.
So amazing.
It just looks, carbon fibre just looks like so cool.
and I can tell you that the price from Ferrari for the rear bumper before painting. So it's with this bit and all of this bit just in primer. Yeah. This raw carbon fibre,
not fitted.
This raw carbon fibre, not fitted. Just the part out of Ferrari.
Oh.
What do you think?
I'd hate to guess.
About 26 grand plus VAT.
Plus VAT.
Plus VAT.
What's that? 35.
Probably.
35 grand for a bumper.
There you go.
So don't
you need to be careful
into
of
anything.
That. You need to be careful of that.
Yes, and that must play, because since you bought this, it's gone up quite a bit in money. That you must think of that when you're driving it around. We went to the Hyperlisso convoy thing, which was absolutely amazing, and there was some this was not by far the cheapest car there, but there was some really, really expensive stuff there.
It was pretty much the cheapest car there.
Well, there was a fleet of Carrera GTs that turned up, and a fleet of Koenigsegg's that turned up, and it was just mad. And a couple of F40s just casually lurking around, some Bugatti Veyrons that turned up, and it was just to be there. So thank you for the invite, but to be there was just absolutely
an amazing day, wasn't it?
What an amazing day, yeah.
And certainly you do worry a little bit about the value. I've just had to up the value for agreed value insurance on it.
Okay.
Just this month is my renewal date, because prices have turned the other way. When you say it did gently drop.
Okay.
I was constantly, I think it dropped to around about 700 they went down to, or just below.
Okay.
But they turned the corner around COVID, and they've gone crazy in Europe.
What are they now? I wouldn't even know.
I've just put it on at 900k agreed value. There were a couple on the market about 940. The problem is they're only 799.
Yeah.
In Europe, left-hand drive ones, obviously a different market to our right-hand drive.
Of course, yeah.
But the left-hand drive market in Europe and the States, they've just gone crazy. They're sort of
hello.
1.5. One changed hands at $2.2 million.
Hang on. Duncan's paperwork's gone everywhere.
Sorry. So yeah, I think they are. If our economy improves slightly, I think they're going to be well over 1 million before long. Wow. Even in this country, because they've got a lot of catching up to do. And they're not there yet.
And would you, at that money, would you chop it in for something else, or do you like it too much?
There are none on the market at the moment. I did have a quick look. I've had 2 companies approach me in the last 2 weeks trying to get it off me.
Right.
I'm just not interested at the moment. But
if you did, what would you? Have you got anything? You got your sights on anything?
I suppose everything's got a price. But what would I do with it? I just don't really want to. I haven't even got around to asking them what sort of price do they want to offer.
And what would you get?
I don't know. Exactly. No,
not for sale.
I have to say it's not for sale.
Unless,
for another 5 or 6 years. I might get rid of it.
when they get to like 3 million.
They're not going to do that.
But they're not?
No. But within 3 years, I reckon they're going to be about 1.1.
Okay.
So I'm not going to let it go for less than $1 million now, am I?
Sure. So there you go. Make Duncan an offer. Let's get on to, what time have we got? Oh, yeah, we're good. Let's get on to becoming a pilot.
All right.
Because a lot of people, including my good wife, are really interested in how, hello, it's builders across the road, like phone's going off. You probably can't hear that.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can't. From school, or at what point did you think, this is what I want to do?
Because my father was a pilot. I don't think there was any time that I always knew that's what I was going to do. It was just a matter of how I was going to do it.
And at what point did you start kind of learning, and when was it, what age were you, was your first flying lesson?
Because my parents, I was one of 3 kids, there was never any question or possibility of them or my funding. I had to do it on my own. At that time, this is late 70s, I left school in 77. Mm-hmm. You could still just get sponsorship. It pretty much dried up in the fixed wing world. So I managed to go through selection and got sponsored for a flying course to fly helicopters on the North Sea, which involved going to the British Airways training college down at Hamble near Southampton, where we did, I think, just 100 hours in the Piper Cherokees fixed wing.
I didn't even know
sorry, less than that. We did 50 hours in the Cherokee, but all the ground school.
So you're a helicopter pilot as well?
I started on helicopters. Although the helicopter course started with 50 hours on fixed wing, because it's cheaper to learn on fixed wing. Okay. Then we went to Trent Helicopters at Cranfield for only 100 hours on the Bell 47, which if you ever watch MASH, that's the big bubble-fronted iron girders out the back. Just potentially 3 seats, 3 abreast, but most only go 2. But that was huge fun. Very slow. It only did about 85 miles an hour or something, but what a great way, completely manual, throttle, no cam to help you. Yeah. So that's where we learned to fly and got a commercial pilot's license, helicopters. Then we had about a 6 or 9 month gap before they were ready to take us up on the North Sea. So I continued working for Trent's, ferrying the aircraft backwards and forwards to Luton and sort of helping the guide check the oils and tyre. We didn't have tyres, had skids, but just light maintenance, pre-flight checking them when the next course was going through. So this is all in 1970. This will be 1980 now. Yeah. Early in summer 1980. And then I started up in Aberdeen on the Sikorsky 61, which is like a big Sea King, slightly elongated Sea King, 19-seater when they're all heavy oilies with all their equipment. But we used to carry up to about 32 passengers on the Penzance-Ciliars run. And I did that for 6 or 7 years until 1987. Which was great fun when you're in your 20s. Yeah. Quite a lot of opportunity to get around. Did some work in India. We had a contract there. Occasionally did summer runs down to Penzance to do the Penzance-Ciliars run. About the final year, I spent the whole year on secondment to KLM helicopters in Amsterdam, which was nice. Then,
so what's kind of the furthest you can go on one of those, on that sort of size helicopter?
We would fly. I think our longest trip was perhaps the Orc Alpha from Aberdeen, which was 160 nautical miles. That's not that far, really, is it? No. That was because you have to carry enough fuel to get there and then either back to land the way you came or onwards. Yeah. That was about the limit of our range. So I guess that probably means it had a range of about 300 miles. Yeah.
And what sort of speed can you
110
cruise at?
knots.
110 knots.
Was this
and what sort of altitude are you at in a helicopter?
Quite low.
Okay.
You know, anything from about 500 to very rarely we went above 5,000 feet.
Oh, right. Okay.
They were unpressurized. So the helicopters lose performance quite quickly when it comes to the rotor performance when you go above about 5.5. Okay. plus you're into icing problems and all the rest of it. So that's we're down in the weather, usually between about sort of 1,500 and 2,500 feet.
And what's the windiest you can go out in a helicopter? And is that different to a plane?
They cope pretty well with wind. We had a limitation, I seem to remember, of about 70 or 75 knots for landing on the wind.
Grief.
Which is
yeah,
monster
that's
wind.
A storm.
But above that, it was just too dangerous for people to get on and off the helicopter.
Oh, it was the people was the limiting factor.
The actual aircraft,
wow.
it just thinks it's flying at 75 knots and it can cruise at 110.
Wow.
So that's not a problem.
But when it's gusty, presumably that's
I did
worse.
have one interesting event landing on the Claymore, which was quite close to the Piper Alpha in that field. Claymore, as with a lot of the platforms, the helidecks were mounted on a big accommodation block.
Yeah.
Think of a 10-story hotel with a helideck on top.
Yeah.
And we tried to land on this, and the winds were about 70 knots. But because the wind had sort of hit the side of the building and then gone vertical, we actually couldn't land. We entered auto rotation.
Like updraft.
You could have sat there. You could even have sat in auto rotation and to switch the engine off. The updraft would have driven the rotors and kept you there. There was no way we could land.
That's crazy.
We had to call it off, and that was absolutely crazy. And that during that final year on secondment to KLM, I'd already made the decision to convert my license to fixed wing. The airlines had started recruiting again, big time. So
was that always the goal, to go to do airlines?
I couldn't see myself staying on the North Sea helicopters for a whole career, no. But the opportunity came up in the late 80s. There were a few fixed wing courses starting to, the very last of the BA fixed wing courses that went through in the late 70s were starting to get taken on as direct entry pilots. So they had opened up the stream of bringing in qualified pilots. So I needed to convert my license, and I had to do all the ground school again. Did that on a correspondence course over the winter in Holland. And then we had clearance because of our experience in helicopters. We had to do something called an abridged an abridged course at an approved school. So I went to Oxford Training School, where I think we had to do 20 hours, of which 10 had to be, minimum of 10 had to be on the Seneca, a light twin. So you had to do things like an instrument rating and a bit of training in a controlled, approved school environment. The flying tests for fixed wing, navigation, night flying, that sort of thing, and particularly the instrument rating. We already had instrument ratings on helicopters, but it's a different qualification when you read across to fixed wing. And then,
what's the main difference in the instrument-y bit?
Not really, no significant difference at all.
Okay, but you just got to read.
It's just a different license.
Okay.
You couldn't get a job without a CPL/IR. You had to have the instrument rating as a package to be employable. So I then went through selection again with British Airways to rejoin them as a direct entry pilot, a DEP, in August '87. And luckily I put my notice in to BA helicopters, which had since been sold and become British International helicopters. I put my notice in and hoped and just got lucky and managed to have a seamless transfer. There was, I think they even let me go about 3 weeks early within my 3 months notice, so that I could have a seamless transition. I even kept my original date of joining for staff travel.
Oh, wow.
And things like the pension read across. So there were certain advantages of having a seamless transition. And then I went on to something called a Hawker Siddeley 748, which is a 44-seat turboprop, which was mainly based in Aberdeen and Glasgow, doing all the islands around
Yes, because we've
Scotland.
had this discussion also, because I've driven over. I was chatting to you, I think on a Petrol Tours about the Shetland runway.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was doing a gig in Shetlands, and I was having a laugh, I think, to you and started describing this runway to you. If you don't know, the Shetland runway is actually almost like the whole length of the bit of the island. And to get to the airport, you have to cross the runway. But the road is so quiet, it's literally like 2 gates that you could pretty much drive around.
That's runway 0927, the east-west runway, which is a very short cross runway, which is the only one that had an instrument approach to it. So it's quite a useful runway.
How do you even remember what the number is of that runway?
Because 09 is 090, that's east.
Oh, I see.
It's all the points of the compass.
Points of the compass.
The slightly longer runway was even more interesting to land on because that had that great big hill at one end of it. So it had a approach.
So you have to nearly miss the hill.
You had to fly to this quarry, and then at around about sort of 450, 500 feet, there's about a 30-degree left turn to land on the runway. That would be runway 33 at Sombra. So that was quite interesting.
And this is in these turboprops?
In the turboprops.
So when you say, I'm trying to pitch one, is this with 2 rows of 2 seats inside?
2 each side of the aisle, yes. It's like a civilian version of the Andover, sort of troop transport thing.
Like the wings attached to the top of it?
No, it's a low wing. It had 2 Dart engines, Rolls-Royce Darts, with something like the Viscount had 4.
Okay.
So it was quite a good little aircraft. It was your first fixed wing, but fairly basic.
Yeah, like the runway to me was hilarious because we drove down to it just as a plane was taking off. So as we drove down to it, it wasn't even as safe as like a train crossing gates. It was literally 2 swing gates, and there was a car already in front of us because they'd already come and shut the gates. We pulled down and stopped in front of this car. The plane came down and took off and was being chased by somebody in like a 4x4 who then came down and opened both gates and then disappeared, which was just absolutely hilarious. So, sorry, post was just arrived.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
But yeah, I just thought it was incredible. And you had to cross the runway to get to the airport.
That's right, yes.
Which is Sombra?
Sombra heads the hill.
Yes.
Will's Ness was the civilian terminal on the other side. So yeah, that was quite good times actually. Just spent a lot of nights. I was never based in Shetland. Okay. So I did a lot of work there on a sort of Monday to Friday commute.
And you were doing Shetland to Aberdeen flights?
I was based in Aberdeen at this point. After a couple of years, I moved to Glasgow and got a command on my first captain's position on the same aircraft.
Okay.
In the interim, we had changed aircraft to the ATP, which was the British Aerospace Advanced Turboprop. So around about 88, 89, I converted onto that. But we didn't actually fly any in and out of Aberdeen at the time. Okay. So the whole 18 months I was on it, I was either on secondment to Glasgow, or we used to do a lot of work in Berlin, doing a lot of the internal services in Berlin, the shorter ones from Berlin to Bremen, Hanover, Nuremberg. Occasionally, I think we went to Hamburg, but just the shorter routes.
And that was still a 40.
That was now a 64-seater. 64, and much more modern engines, glass cockpit.
Which meant what, easier to fly, to go further?
Probably. It was just quieter, more efficient.
Okay. Yeah.
It wasn't that reliable.
It wasn't reliable. Oh, no. What, you drop an engine in flight?
It was nicknamed Another Technical Problem rather than Advanced Turboprop for the ATP name. It went wrong a lot.
Because of what?
Just the systems. Half the time you touched a switch on the overhead panel and it all fell off and sprung out in your face. So it didn't really cause us any great problems.
Okay.
It was just, I think it caused more problems for the engineers.
Okay.
Had to land on one engine once on that. During the training on the ATP, we used to actually physically shut the engine down. We didn't have a simulator in the early days.
Right.
And never had a simulator on the 748. So some of the training was done, all the training was done in the actual aircraft. And for an initial conversion, we used to shut one engine down fully and feather the prop.
Right.
Obviously without passengers, just the training captain and a few students. And it had some strange issue where if it was particularly cold, the 2 shafts of the engine seized together, dissimilar metals and cooling, and the tiny little, the starter motor only turned the core of the engine. I don't know if you know how a turboprop works, but it was a free turbine, different to the Dart, which when you great big DC starter clunks in and the propeller starts turning, the whole engine's turning. To start, it's just the jet section in the middle that you're starting, but these two components had seized together, and it wasn't man enough. So a great big power surge, all the instruments went blank as the sort of AC generators dropped offline.
Oh my days!
And we diverted back to Glasgow and got a proper single engine landing during training on an ATP. So I
did no faking that, it for the training that day.
And then went from a co-pilot on that to got my captain's position on the 748 with a move from Aberdeen to Glasgow.
Yeah.
Loved flying out of Glasgow. We did more Stornoway, Benbecula, Belfast, Inverness, lots still Aberdeen, occasionally Orkneys, Shetland. Really nice work. Up and down to Birmingham and Manchester quite a lot. So quite enjoyable. But the Budgies, which was the nickname for the 748, they departed, I suppose, around 93, 94, and everyone went onto the ATP. So I continued up there as a captain on the ATP until around about 1995. Then I had a rather strange transition. I went to the right-hand seat, co-pilot seat of a 737-400 based at Heathrow.
Yes.
For only about a year.
So this is this is jumbo jets now?
No, 737. 737-400 is just the
how many
European
seats is this?
140, 145 seats.
Okay, well that's what I call a jumbo jet. But that's not what you call a jumbo jet.
No.
So this is like a...
That's a 747 jumbo jet.
747. So what's the 737?
They fly around, if you ever go Ryanair or anything like that, you're in a 737.
But that's not a jumbo jet?
No.
What do you call
just
that?
A jet.
That's just a jet.
It's a short haul. Anything like Airbus A320s and things like that. So
is a jumbo jet over a certain size?
No, a jumbo jet really is only a 747, a Boeing 747.
A Boeing 747 is a jumbo jet?
Is the jumbo jet.
Because?
But at the time when a lot of people referred to the trio of the TriStar, the DC-10 and the jumbo all as jumbo jets, but really it's only the 747 that was the jumbo. And
because it was like the nickname for it, or just?
I think even Boeing called it the jumbo. It was.
So even a bigger plane than that is still not a jumbo jet.
No, I would never call an Airbus A380 a jumbo jet.
No, because that's an Airbus. I guess
a lot of people do, but
yeah, that's true, including me. I'm a bit.
So I went to the right-hand seat of a 737-400, which was the fairly advanced glass cockpit 737. Only did that for a year. And then changed seats again, did another command course to go back to Manchester to fly the earlier 737, which was the 737-200, back to clockwork dials and
is that like going back in time?
Back
or not
in time
too bad?
A little bit, but nice, great
it's
aircraft.
Still nice.
I really enjoyed that, and only did that for about a year and a half, and then I changed seats again
when the music stopped.
1997.
Yeah.
To the right-hand seat of the 747-400, based at. All the time I was living in Glasgow, so the commute back Glasgow to Manchester was a bit of a pain.
Yeah,
I got a paid move from Glasgow. The BA helped with the costs of sort of removal costs and estate agent fees and all that sort of stuff. So I got a paid move from Glasgow down to Surrey. Went long haul, hoping it would only be a couple of years to be able to seat change for a command on the jumbo, which in fact happened in 2001 or thereabouts.
Command is captain?
Yes.
Okay.
So I did another command course. In fact, I was on the right-hand seat to left-hand seat conversion on the 747 exactly when September the 11th happened. It was the Tuesday of the week-long residential course that they ran, all the sort of command aspects, nothing to do with the simulator training, things like that. That was separate. But we had this sort of week of, I don't know, character building and chats with lawyers and all the legal aspects of a captain's position compared to a normal pilot's position. And yeah, September the 11th happened on that Tuesday, and the boss of British Airways still came to the organised dinner, I think, on the Thursday night. His name was Rod Eddington, was the boss at the time. So I think we were quite impressed with all the goings on in the airline world that he still found time to come and spend the evening with us on our course.
Wow.
So that was me on the 747-400, where I stayed for the rest of my...
and the 747, that's the jumbo jet?
That's the jumbo jet.
And
Queen of the skies.
I'm just going to check. We've got that. So I just saw you move your mic. I'm just checking that light's still on, which is good. And also I'll do that because then I can spot that in the edit, and that's easy to take out. And then you flew for jumbo jets for, and so you're captain on jumbo jet now.
I went on the jumbo in 1997.
Yeah.
Changed seats in late 2001, early 2002.
So the questions that I've got now...
I stopped. I retired through choice.
Okay.
There was an offer after the financial crash in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
They wanted a bunch of us to go. So I left on a sort of severance scheme in August 2009, which I just difficult to believe that that's now, what, 17 odd years ago.
Wow.
This year. So
So the questions I've got now, what's the difference between obviously this could be a whole other hour, but the main differences between flying like a turboprop and a 737 and a 747, is the fundamentals of it all exactly the same? Is like a bigger jet actually easier to fly, or the opposite, or?
I mean, everything happens a bit quicker in jets in that you are travelling significantly faster. The main difference with the jumbo compared to a 737 is just the length of flights and the fact that you're often doing 12, 13-hour flights, so you have extra crew members so that you can. It was a lovely job. If you could sleep on the aircraft like I could in the bunks, it was.
You got bunks in the cockpit?
We had 2 bunks up on the flight deck. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there'd be 3 pilots?
Up to around about 7 hours tops, you only had 2, a captain and a co-pilot, between about 7. So that would get you to around about Chicago going westbound.
Yeah.
Miami could be 2 crew, Chicago, but as soon as you went to the likes of Denver, Phoenix, LA, San Francisco, you had 1 extra co-pilot.
Right.
And that covers you to places like Bangkok was nearly always 3 crew. Anywhere in India was 3 crew. Things like Southern Africa, Cape Town, Johannesburg was 3 crew. The only ones that were 4 crew were my favourites, really, because you could get 6 hours sleeping in the bunk. 4 crew, 2 captains. In BA, they chose to have a full heavy crew of a second captain and a second co-pilot. They did.
So when you're 3, still only 1 captain?
1 captain, 2 co-pilots when you're 3. Singapore, some Hong Kongs, and one of my favourite destinations was Buenos Aires. So that was all 4 crew.
Because just 4 crew.
Great.
And a nice place.
Southern Hemisphere during our winters. I always like things like Cape Town and Buenos Aires and Sydney, getting off to Southern Hemisphere.
And the other question then I've also got is the main differences between being a captain and a co-pilot.
Just money and responsibility, really, I suppose. Yeah,
so being a captain, you are fully responsible. If your co-pilot's messing up, you got to take over.
Yes, but in BA, I don't think it's the same with all airlines. In BA, all co-pilots are trained. They have the aircraft type in the P1 section.
Speaking of which,
their
we've got something
legal
going
license. So they're qualified as pilot in command as far as the legalities and the CAA are concerned.
Okay.
But
obviously, if something happened to the captain, they've got to be able to do the whole job.
Of course, and they're fully trained. On a 2 crew aircraft,
they're not still on nail plates.
If you keeled over, they're fully competent and capable of declaring an emergency and bringing the aircraft in perfectly safely. So it really is just everyone eventually transfers. It's a good job. It's a better job flying in the left-hand seat. You're always slightly adjusting yourself to fit in with the various idiosyncrasies of the captain you're flying with when you're a co-pilot. But when you're a captain, you can sort of pretty much run the show how you wish it to be run, which is all very much within the standard operating procedures of the airline you're working for.
You loved it, didn't you?
I did enjoy it.
Your face literally lights up every time. I can see that you're thinking about being back in the cockpit.
I did enjoy it, but most of my friends, most of my colleagues, they thought I was absolutely mad to leave when I was 50. When they all went on till they're, even some have only just quite recently retired at 65.
Okay. So, do you miss it?
Well, it's more, there are other things you can do with your life. I'd done it for 30 years.
Yep.
I felt like I could afford to retire and have a reasonable retirement. I thought there are other things I want to do. So that I got more involved with cars and road trips with good old petrolhead tours. And that's why I jacked it in.
Enjoy this glorious weather. Sat next to your Ferrari.
I don't regret it at all.
Are you having a tricky day? What did you ever fly the 380s? Is the 7 foot? No,
never flew an Airbus of any sort. I'm very much a Boeing man when it comes to.
Would there be much difference? Do you know what it would be like to fly one of those?
They're all
massive.
They're all fly by wire, and you just have a little side stick. You don't have a nice big Boeing control column to sort of.
Well, that's not fly-by-wire. That's actually attached to stuff.
777 and 787, they are fly-by-wire, but they have a traditional Boeing yoke between your legs.
Okay.
All you've got between your legs on a A380 is a fold-out table for your lunch. Everything's done with a little joystick at the side.
No.
So I've no idea. I've never flown an Airbus A320 or anything like that. There are a lot more protections to the to protect the aircraft from sort of overspeeds and underspeeds and this, that, and the other. So it looks after you quite well. Yeah. But you are flying it through a computer, which doesn't really appeal to me. Yeah, at least on a jumbo. You know, if you're flying the controls, there are wire cables all the way, the whole length of the aircraft to the actual control is worked by a hydraulic ram. But there are mechanical controls to that hydraulic ram linked directly to your control column. So yes, I'm very much would prefer the Boeing way of doing things.
You're going to remember where this was, but I can't remember. Teruel?
Teruel, yeah.
Teruel, because on a petrolhead tours, I think my first petrolhead tours, we were somewhere and you were like, Teruel, I'm sure there's an airport here. So we done a quick Google and we were like, sure enough, there's an airport up the road. And this was during lockdown. So we all jumped in the car, I think after dinner, or maybe first thing in the morning. I think we might have done both. Shot up to this it's like a runway / airfield.
It's a huge aircraft graveyard.
But they were using it for parking during COVID. And you were stood there going, oh, I recognise that as the tail number. I've flown that.
I think there were 4 BA jumbos there, weren't there?
Yeah, and you'd flown them all. Because you recognise the tail.
Yes, all the British
Airways. It's like recognising the registration number on a car.
56 or 57 747-400s, and
you would have flown them all.
None of them I haven't flown. Some more than others, but I did at one stage check my logbook that there was none that got missed out. So yes, I had definitely flown.
That was fantastic. So we were like, can you get the keys and jump in them? We go for a little drive around.
I think some of them didn't have engines on at that stage.
Some of them didn't have engines on.
A lot of the A380s that were there have been reactivated. Things like those Etihad ones and Qatar Airways.
They've been reactivated.
They're back flying, and there were quite a few Lufthansa ones there. I think nearly all the Lufthansa ones are back flying. So yes, they were kept there because it's a very dry, almost desert-like atmosphere. So the aircraft cope with being stored for years without too many problems with corrosion.
Which brings me on nicely to the final story that I want you to tell, which at dinner that night, so this is potentially one of the best stories I've ever heard. I'm not bigging it up too much, I hope. But literally, we went back for dinner and you started telling this story to, I think, about 4 people at the dinner table. And by the time you finished, there was 20 people stood around you because the story just got more and more compelling. And it was just, and I'd try and retell it, but I can't tell it the same as you. But this is a potentially...
Would you believe?
A record.
Look at the date. Almost exactly 20 years ago.
Almost exactly 20 years ago.
March 2006.
So, and this is, to preface it, a Mayday call in a jumbo jet.
Yes, we...
Yes, just casually. I called for Mayday and So where were you? Start the story.
Well, I was on a Bangkok-Sydney trip.
A Bangkok, Sydney, yeah.
So 3 crew.
Mm-hmm.
We keep 3 crew, even though the Bangkok...
In a 747?
In the 747. Yep. Golf Bravo November Lima Mic was the actual aircraft.
Yeah. Is it still flying?
No, none of them are.
Flying.
It's probably been scrapped by now.
Okay.
Yes, we were flying from Sydney back to Bangkok.
Mm-hmm.
So this is we're out of London. It's a 9-day trip out of London. We're probably on about day 6 of a 9-day trip, because we would then have 48 hours rest in Bangkok before flying to London.
Okay.
We only get a day and a half in Sydney, but it's a nice trip, even though you go all the way to Sydney and back from an evening flight leaving London to an early morning flight on day 9.
Yeah.
It was quite efficient for getting our duties done. I used to bunch my work up, and it was just quite efficient. I used to do them a lot.
Yeah.
So Sydney back to Bangkok, and no hint of any problems with weather. In fact, I do actually have somewhere...
You've got the full report there. I don't think we're going to have time to go through the full report.
No. How long have you got?
We are...
I've got the weather forecast. You've got time for the weather forecast?
We got? Yeah, no, we're all right. We've got 5-10 minutes.
Weather forecast on our briefing was light winds, 9 kilometres, few cloud at 2,000 feet, becoming from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the morning, light winds, great visibility, scattered at 2,000. Just no hint.
Where are you reading this from? Because I'm looking at
this
codes.
Is here. It's codes. All the lines is good visibility. Scattered at 2,000 feet, broken at 3,000, becoming between 10 and 1,200 Zulu.
No way. That looks like you're looking at...
Southerly at 5 knots, few at 2,000, becoming... broken at 30,000 feet, becoming from 1,900 to 2,100.
Let me just show the camera quick. I don't know if you could pick this up, but this is literally gibberish.
Well, that's how you...
to me.
The weather's come.
Yeah, so I've got software engineers
no hints of weather problems. No significant met for this flight. Our planned alternate was this place, Utapao, called Rayong. I don't know whether you want to bring a map up there.
Oh, good grief. Where's this? Cambodia, Vietnam... Oh yeah, this you probably won't see us on camera, but this is all part of his report.
So Bangkok's there. Rayong is just a short spit away. That was our nominated alternate. So we have to carry enough fuel.
So there's always an alternate.
Always enough fuel.
Every time you take off, there's
Absolutely.
potentially we have to go here.
Yeah, potentially you have to go to your fuel alternate. It wasn't for the reasons that the weather was bad at Bangkok. It's just you always have a minimum of another airfield.
Yeah.
Often Gatwick's a fuel alternate for Heathrow or something like that.
Okay. So you're on your way to Bangkok.
On the way to Bangkok, not expecting any issues whatsoever. And about an hour out from Bangkok, we were coming in from this direction over Cambodia and Vietnam, Cambodia.
Yeah.
Is the direction for some reason that the route was coming in. We heard that there was a bit of weather in the Bangkok area, and we were told to hold at a place called Helen. And
when you say hold, obviously you can't park in the sky.
Well, you just fly around in circles.
Okay. So you're an hour away from Bangkok?
Round about an hour, yes. So we arrived in the Helen Hold at 15:29 in UK time, Zulu time, GMT.
Yeah.
Which is what? They're 7 hours ahead in Thailand. So we're sort of mid-evening there. Probably 10 o'clock at night would be the scheduled landing time at Bangkok.
You're circling. And
I think they said... they gave us... they gave us an expected approach time. Either way, I don't want to labour that point. We were in the hold at Helen when this monster thunderstorm rolled in over Bangkok, and they basically said the airport was closed, expected at least an hour.
Okay.
You don't carry fuel to hang around for an hour.
No.
We just immediately said, right, we'll request diversion to Rayong.
Yeah.
And they immediately said, Rayong not available.
Oh.
So that shouldn't happen for the first place. Your nominated legal alternate to be told not available.
Because?
It was no doubt because
storm as well.
All the other aircraft had the same weather.
Okay.
all the short haul and other long haul aircraft, masses of diversions. They were all heading for Rayong, and it was just a single runway airport with not much parking space. It was basically full.
Oh no!
So we had loads of fuel at this point. We had, I think we arrived at Helen with 15.2 tons of fuel. The figures sound quite big. We would have taken off from Sydney with, I think, the Cirrus fuel, the computer pre-planned fuel, which is the trip fuel plus the fuel to the alternate, plus 45 minutes reserve fuel, plus a bit of contingency fuel, was about 98 tons.
90. So you take off with 98 tons of fuel.
98 tons of fuel. A jumbo full for the really long flights, including a tank in the tailplane. We could go up to, I think, about 173 and a half tons of fuel. So we're well below. But that was
but that's what you started with.
You never take more fuel than you think you'll need. We in fact did take about 2 tons extra, which is very unusual.
Okay,
we're under a fair bit of pressure to not take more than what the computer plan is. You just carry an extra fuel for no reason. You need a reason. You need a genuine reason that you can justify. In the old days, people used to just put an extra ton on for sort of granny and the kids. But that all went. Everyone was trying to fly as efficiently as possible, and it costs you a lot to carry the extra fuel. You use about, I think it was about 10% of the weight of the fuel per hour. No, it can't be that much. 4% of the weight of the fuel per hour. So in a 10-hour flight, you will have used 40% of the extra fuel that you would put on at the start. You'll only have 60% of that fuel left by the time you 10 hours into the flight, because the extra weight of the aircraft, you burnt that much extra fuel. So we had put 2 tons extra because there was a cyclone somewhere near Darwin. Which
so they had put it on for a reason.
We thought we needed to divert slightly off track southbound to Sydney a few days earlier, and this cyclone was still there. And I just had an extra couple of tons just in case. So I think we started off, the figures are all here somewhere, we started off with 100 and a bit tons. So
you're not going to Bangkok?
We got into the Helen Hold with 15 and a bit tons. We normally land, the normal landing
what's called the Helen Hold?
This is the place near Bangkok we were told to hold. It was just called Helen. It's a point in space. So we're not worried at this point. Loads of fuel. You normally land.
Got what at this point?
15.2 tons.
15 tons. So you've done the majority of your flight. You're circling near Bangkok.
We would normally land with about 8.5. Maybe. If you landed with 10 tons of fuel, it's a good day. You've probably carried extra fuel, had a lot of directs, and haven't used any extra fuel you put on. You're normal around 8 to 9 is normal for the landing fuel when you shut down. Bear that in mind, because the numbers are quite big.
So you've got 15 tons
15
of
and a
fuel.
half tons, that's absolutely no problem. When they said Rayong was not available, we fairly quickly had a quick look at the weathers. We probably already knew that the weather up in Chiang Mai, which was our next closest alternate, an hour to the north of Bangkok, that was okay, and it was available to us, even though we'd be near a midnight by the time we arrived there. It was available to us with 1 hour prior notice in the middle of the night to get things like the fire cover, because the airfield is not a 24-hour airfield, so we're not an emergency at this point.
No.
They would open it up to allow us to land, get fuel, and then fly back when the weather had improved at Bangkok. So we set off towards Chiang Mai, taking a big detour around this monster thunderstorm, which you could see on the weather radar plonked right over Bangkok airport. We were perhaps a third of the way to Chiang Mai when air traffic decided, or let us know, that Rayong can now accept us. What do we want to do? And it was that sort of decision's easy.
Are you in the middle?
We were actually, even if we weren't, Rayong, for the eventual final flight from Rayong to Bangkok,
it's closer.
to keep the schedule going, was much closer. It was closer than Chiang Mai, so we did a 180-degree turn, set off back down to Rayong, and if we had landed at Rayong, we probably would have landed with about 9 or 10 tons anyway.
Which would have been about normal.
About normal. We were, in our descent, I can't remember how close to we certainly weren't on finals, but we were well into our descent to Rayong when air traffic control said, rayon closed, runway blocked, and the previous aircraft had some hydraulic failure and dumped hydraulic fluid all over the runway, and the aircraft was stuck on the runway.
Oh, it was actually
rayon
there.
Has only one runway.
Oh.
So we immediately put out what's called a pan call, where our rules state that if you think you might land with less than reserve fuel, you put out a pan call, which is an urgency call, one step below a mayday.
Yeah, this is we're on the edge.
We're on the edge. You say pan, 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 pan,
and what's
pan.
reserve? What do you call reserve fuel?
A lot of it is an ICAO term, but quite a lot of the world don't really use it.
Okay.
They didn't understand what we were saying.
Okay.
You've got language problems as well. So we
and what would you call a reserve fuel? Less than
right. Reserve fuel varies slightly depending on the weight of the aircraft.
Yeah, for sure.
And where you are, but it's around about 4.3 tons.
Okay.
I think it was exactly 4.3.
So at that point, because you've been diverted again, you're like, wherever we go now, we're going to be less than reserve fuel.
Yes, well, we thought we might be.
Yeah.
So this is even before we had put where we were going. We hadn't even decided where we're going, perhaps, at that point. When you put it in the box in your computer, flight planning computer, it gives you its expected fuel of arrival. And all I was doing was I was expecting now to land with less than reserve fuel. So that was a pan call. When they didn't understand that, we immediately upgraded it to a mayday.
Right.
And which really means that everyone concentrates.
Yeah. You've got to get us down.
I turned immediately to, I chose, rather than go to Chiang Mai, which was about an hour to the north still.
Yeah.
I chose perhaps slightly longer distance, but either way, the wind was behind us and the weather was better and all the rest of it. We turned to Phuket.
Yep.
About an hour southwest of where we were now. And I stuck it in the computer. It reckoned we would land with 3.3 tons.
Okay.
And 4.5 was our reserve.
Yeah.
So consequently,
like, okay,
the mayday.
Getting close.
And we just concentrated on getting it to Phuket as efficiently as we could. All sorts of things were happening in the cabin. Someone had collapsed in a toilet, so the cabin crew were dealing with that.
Oh.
But the problems the cabin crew had were the moving map.
Yeah.
The passengers were constantly badgering the cabin crew, asking, "What are these pilots doing?
What are we doing now?
You could see the history of our route, flying around in circles, setting off for Chiang Mai, back to Rayon."
Do they know where they're going?
At the time, we couldn't throw a switch on the moving map. If you could turn the whole in-flight entertainment off, which included the moving map, but there wasn't a separate switch to turn the map off.
Okay.
So we were very busy. We did, of course, try and keep the passengers informed as to what was going on, because we're now 10 hours into a flight that should only have taken about 8.
Oh, okay.
It was going on and on.
So they're
and
getting
on.
a bit eggy.
They were getting a bit frustrated.
They've run out of.
We had various checklists to go through because, for whatever reason, one of the tanks, in the latter stage of a flight on a jumbo, you normally have tank to engine. So the inboard and outboard main tanks in each wing are feeding. The outboard left wing is feeding number 1 engine. The inboard left wing feeding number 2.
Yep.
So your tank to engine and all separate fuel system. Yeah. Cross feeds on open or anything like that. But for whatever reason, we had a slight imbalance and we completely emptied the number 3 tank. So it actually, once it goes below a certain level, you do a low fuel checklist, which involves turning all pumps on in tanks that have fuel in it. And all the cross feeds open. And as far as Boeing are concerned, that the engines will run until you run out of fuel. And I just take their word for it. But it was a bit unpleasant seeing 0.0 in one of the tanks, because that tank is the one normally feeding number 3 engine. Yeah. But the number 3 engine never missed a beat because it was being run by a cross feed from another tank.
I see. Okay.
So we eventually landed, and I think we shut down with 3.2 tons.
So you landed at Phuket fine.
Landed at Phuket. We had probably had enough fuel to do. If we had to do a go around, you could have perhaps done a short circuit, but there would have been problems with the go around because of the attitude change with a very light aircraft with fuel sloshing around the tanks. Yeah, we were pretty convinced we would have had at least one engine flame out even
if you were doing a go around.
If you did a go around,
because they're climbing again.
Yeah, or because you might have uncovered some sort of feed. It's the aircraft.
Yeah, it's not meant to run like that.
It's not meant to run like that. No.
So and then because also you're coming down and now you're going full throttle and up.
There would be an accelerating attitude change to do a go around, which could easily have caused problems with an engine flaming out. But we weren't going to do a go around. We were absolutely going to land.
And you did the landing?
I think it was my co-pilot sector. No, I think he continued to land it. I can't remember now.
And what's going through your mind on finals? Or you just
making absolutely sure we don't screw up the approach and have to do a go around. And then when we got on the ground,
was it an easy landing? Was no like mega crosswinds or anything silly?
The weather was nice.
Brilliant.
We got on the ground and shut the engines down. And
did you have like fire crew and stuff waiting, or was it nothing?
Being a Mayday, coming in on a Mayday, you would have
everyone's ready.
All the fire vehicles would be following you down the runway. Well, I don't know. It's just their standard procedure.
Okay.
An aircraft with a Mayday, they get the trucks out. So we got a call on the sat phone from BA Heathrow, the main ops control.
What, once you had landed?
It was the chief pilot. Once we had landed, he said, we see you've got very little fuel in your number 2 tank. Just to remind you that the number 2 tank is what's feeding the APU. He suggested
APU? What's that?
The auxiliary power unit, which we had started to supply the electrics and air conditioning on the ground. He suggested we got fuel on board as quick as we could, and we were already hooked up and taking fuel.
Otherwise, the aircraft's going to cut out.
We had a quick chat with him. They had all been watching everything on their computer screens. They have this thing called Flight Watch. They would have more data coming off the aircraft than we had up front. They could see absolutely everything going on as to which tanks are empty. And
they're all like, no.
And they were more worried that we might have been a bit spooked by it all. It's not a normal thing. Most people don't ever put a Mayday call out. They wanted to make sure that we were calm enough to continue. We were all perfectly happy in about an hour and a bit turnaround to take on plenty of fuel, let the brakes cool down, things like that. We decided we were fully within hours and able to fly the aircraft for a short 1 hour flight onwards to Bangkok after refueling. We had enough duty hours available.
You went straight out
which is what we did, but they made it very clear to us if for whatever reason we didn't feel we wanted to do it, or we could easily have put all the 340 odd passengers into hotels in the middle of the night. Cabin crew had a few problems. Always when this sort of thing happens, you would probably have 20 passengers that want to be in Phuket. So we had to fend off quite a few passengers who wanted to get off in Phuket. And in the middle of the night, all right, it's a 24-hour airport, but there probably would be customs staff and people who could check passports. But to try and find baggage for the odd passengers that wanted to get off, it would be a nightmare. So we managed to convince them all that, no, this is not what's happening. You're all coming with us to...
So you kept everyone on?
Everyone we kept on.
And then went to Bangkok?
Went to Bangkok, by which time the storm had passed, handed over to the next crew. And eventually the flight was only perhaps 2.5 hours late, Bangkok, setting off back to London. And we just had to then fill in all the paperwork, and it ended up being a full internal investigation.
And you don't get in trouble for that, surely?
Not in trouble. No, I actually got an award for that.
Really?
You've got it there. I'll show you.
Yeah, go on. What award have you got?
You didn't see that?
Yeah, go on. Go and grab it.
Oh, God.
Fantastic. Service that matters. Flight Operations Award for Excellence. This award is made to Captain Duncan Baines in recognition of an outstanding performance in a very difficult circumstances and ensuring a safe and secure operation. And who are these signatures?
It's Willie Walsh, who's the chief executive, and that's the chief pilot and the director of flight operations.
Wow, fantastic.
So that's that story. There you go. When you say...
that to me sounds...
You had a few questions. The next day I phoned the office from Bangkok, because we still had 48 hours. Oh, there's a tiny bit more to the story if we've got time.
I mean, no, but
when we went back to the airport 2 days later,
Yeah.
I had my dad on board.
Yeah.
I'd left him in Bangkok.
Yeah, yeah.
He had been out on a trip.
Dog's after your biscuits.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You look after those. I'll have another one of those.
Here you come.
We were driving in the minibus to the airport.
Hello.
Dirty, great big thunderstorm. We get a pre-briefing paper delivered to the hotel. Had a quick look at the weather that we had and the forecast, which is what they would have had leaving Sydney. No hint of any thunderstorms, and there we were sitting under a huge thunderstorm. And we got to the airport, and sure enough, the aircraft was diverted to Utapao. So we were about 2 hours late leaving Bangkok to get to London, and we had some of our passengers from our original diversion to Phuket still on. They'd spent 48 hours in Thailand, but it just goes to show how bad the forecasting was. So the main things that came out of the investigation was the quality of the forecasting, the use of single runway. I don't think they ever changed it, but it is an operational risk to be using an alternate with only one runway, because anything can happen that can cause you issues. And we got away with it. So there you go.
There we go. Right, we're going to leave it there because we want another cup of tea, and the dogs are going to eat these shortbread biscuits if we don't eat them quick. Guys, as always, like, subscribe, share, check out my other videos. There's a bunch of other Spudcasts that we've done so far. I've got a few more people booked in for some more interesting chat as well. Not sure many of them got of TDF, but it is what it is. Thank you ever so much, Mr. Duncan. Sorry, Captain Duncan. I thought it was a joke when I first met Captain Duncan. He is actually a captain. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye. That's why I wanted makeup here first. Out of my nose.
But you're so beautiful already, Duncan. Mate, tea and biscuits. Mate, here we go.
I'm gobsmacked that anyone would be interested in.
Mate, so I'm going to say this now. When I said I was coming out to film with you today, my missus said this is the first podcast that I've done. She might actually listen. She might actually watch and listen to.